I will tell you a short story. Last Sunday, I had with newcomers, people came to my mass here, and they asked me, "You are not with the papacy?" No, I told them, you are wrong. We are with the papacy, and we are this way because we love the papacy. We love the Pope. It doesn't mean that Francisco, the Argentinian Pope, is a real Pope. Understand? But because of our love of the Pope, of the true Pope, that's why we are Sedevacantists. Because we love the Pope, because we know that he cannot err, because we know that he is Christ on earth, because we know he is the successor of Peter, because we know that he has the prayer of our Lord, that he cannot err, because we know that the magisterium of the church is infallible. Because of all of those things, that's why we are Sedevacantists. And that's why also we have to love all the true popes until the death of Pius XII.
This is St. Anthony of Padua Rattrad channel, and today I have His Excellency Bishop Espina with us today to just tell us a little bit about his story, his journey to the priesthood and the episcopacy, and just in general, just to learn a little bit about him. So I'm glad, I'm grateful for Your Excellency for taking the time to come on and discuss your, talk about yourself. I appreciate it. I think we'll start off by asking you just who ordained you, when did that take place, and who consecrated you a bishop, and when did that take place?
Yes, all right. I began my seminary here in Argentina, in Córdoba, with my brother, who is Father Julian Espina. He was ordained by Bishop Carmona in 1991, and he began with Father Luis Jurado, who you must know, a little house of formation here in the place where I live now. We are about 1 hour away from Cordoba. I began my studies here, and we had the visit of Bishop Pivarunas every year since 1996, I believe. He came here with Father Gerard Maki for confirmations and for the blessing of the work of Father Julian and Father Jurado. The beginning of the seminary, of the house of formation, we were very few of us studying in the seminary, and it was right then. I was 16 years old when I began in 1996, and then I began my philosophy here. I continued with my theology, and I was receiving every year the orders, the minor orders, the tonsure, the minor orders, subdiaconate. And for my diaconate, I went to Omaha. It was in 2001. I received the diaconate in Omaha with Bishop Pivarunas. In fact, I made the retreat over there in the place. They have a convent now. Then I returned to Argentina, and because of my brother had a car accident, he crashed his car and broke his leg in 2 pieces. So he had to stay at bed for a while, maybe 2 or 3 months. He couldn't take care of the seminary or the places he used to go for masses, right? So it was a proposition that there was a proposition from the United States, Father Carlos Ercoli, who now is living in, I think, in some part of Washington. not DC, but the state of Washington in the United States.
Okay.
He was moving from Italy to the United States to work with Father Sanborn at the time, and he proposed us to go there to finish our studies. We were at that time in the seminary here. Myself, Father now Father Palma, who was a seminarian at that time, recently entered. Father Nicolas Desposito. Both of them are working with Bishop Sanborn now. And there was another seminarian that later on he left the seminary. So we went to the United States, me as a deacon already. So I arrived maybe in March of 2002 in the United States, in Michigan, in the seminary Most Holy Trinity. And then I finished my studies there in the the theology. In fact, I had already finished it, but I had 1 year and several months to make a test of every matter in the theology. In fact, I had at the beginning I had an examination every week, and later on I had an examination every 2 weeks. So most of my life in the United States was just studying what I had already studied here in Argentina, just to make the examinations with Bishop Sanborn, Father Sanborn at the time, and Father Selway, who was recently ordained, now a bishop. Then I studied there for 1 year and a half, and I got ordained in 2003. In the meantime, Father Sanborn was consecrated a bishop by Bishop McKenna, and maybe the consecration of Father Sanborn was in June of 2002. And then his first ordination in the priesthood was myself. Was in June 2003. I was ordained on the 14th of June 2003 by Bishop Sanborn. So as soon as I got the ordination, I returned with my brother who came from my ordination. I was ordained in Fraser in a chapel that Bishop Sanborn had bought at that time, nearby Warren, Detroit.
Before we get into, how you got consecrated, I think it's interesting that you said did you say you were the first priest that Bishop Sanborn ordained?
Yes.
That's interesting. Let's hear. We'll get more into this about how that came about, because I'm curious to hear and how how it is that you end up going to Most Holy Trinity Seminary as opposed to maybe the CMRI Seminary, since you were working closely with His Excellency Bishop Pivarunas. Mm-hmm. But before we get into maybe some of those details, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the group that you're part of. It's Mater Dei down. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that group, how that started, and who you guys are exactly.
Yes, that the beginning of Mater Dei would start maybe with the idea of making a house of formation here in Argentina. Mm-hmm. Like it was the idea of a group for receiving young people for studies to the priesthood, right? And it began maybe in the 1994 or 1995, more or less. My brother was ordained by Bishop Carmona in 1991, and then he came and he was by himself for a while here in Cordoba, and then Father Luis Jurado got ordained by Bishop Pivarunas and came to work with my brother here in Cordoba. And then both of them they received 2 or 3 young people with the idea of becoming a priest, right? So then they thought that would be a good idea to make a house of formation, and the idea of a pious union called Mater Dei Foundation or Mater Dei Institute. In fact, we have a civil foundation called Mater Dei. The idea of making a group of priests like Bishop Pivarunas has in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. Not a congregation, a religious congregation like the CMRI, because we don't make any promises or vows, but just a pious union of priests and religious here in Argentina, that we called it Mater Dei. At the moment, we are 4 priests.
4 priests.
4 priests. Yes. In fact, we are 3 priests and a bishop. Is that a religious congregation, for example, they have vows, religious vows, right? Mm-hmm. And in the pious union, you don't need to have it. It's like a gathering of priests or religious and even faithful, just to with the idea of a family, right? The idea of helping each other like a family do. In the congregation, you have like this same style, but you make vows. For example, in the CMRI, they make vows of obedience, chastity, and poverty. We don't have these vows. We are just a secular priests and third order religious. For example, we have here some lay brothers of third order of St. Francis. All of us we belong to the third order of St. Francis of Assisi. So that mainly is that the difference. The congregation is more, you have to, it's like a religious order in many senses, right? Just to make a comparison.
Sure.
Comparison. And a pious union is like you live together, you gather, you have, but you travel a lot, you do your work, it's like a more freestyle life.
Okay.
Without vows. Bishop Pivarunas, for example, he has the CMRI and he has the secular priest, and they live like a parish priest. They live in different places, but they gather together once or twice a year for retreat or for conferences. We live together, and we from here we try to cover all the places in Argentina and in Brazil and in Chile that we cover with masses.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Father Excellency, your upbringing. Did you grow up in the traditional church, or did you grow up in the Novus Ordo?
I grew up in the traditional church. In fact, my father I was born in Rio Negro, is the name of the province here in Argentina, is part of the Patagonia. And my father, I am the last of 10 siblings, right? I am the last one. We are 7 boys and 3 girls in my family. And I was the last after 5 years. My nearest sister is 5 years older than me. I was born in Patagonia, and my parents already were very traditional because they saw that there was a problem with the Second Vatican Council. They didn't know exactly what was going on, but they already attended Mass in the Society Pius X here in Argentina. In fact, my brother, when I was 4 years old, my brother Julian entered in the seminary in the seminary of the Society Pius X here in Buenos Aires. And but even that, my father was always like of complaining about the situation of the Society Pius X situation, right? Recognizing the Pope, John Paul II was at that time, is the Pope, but we cannot obey him because he's a bad Pope, and so on. And my father was never convinced with that. Not even, he didn't know what was the real problem, maybe, but he was having from the very beginning of his conversion, let's say, like the question of cannot be a bad pope, right? If the pope is the pope, it should be a good pope. The error of a bad pope, the let's say the meaning of pope cannot enter in a bad pope, right? It must be a good pope or not pope at all.
Okay.
My brother left the society, became
So, where should we begin again? About I was about the place of my birth and so on, or did you lose?
I believe, Your Excellency, we were talking a little bit about your upbringing in the traditional church.
Yes. Yes, in fact, I was saying that yes, my parents were already traditional Catholic when I was born. I was born in Patagonia, Rio Negro, the place of the province I was born. In Rio Colorado is the name of the city. My father had a property there in Patagonia, so I grew up there. And my parents, both of them were Catholic. And 6 of my siblings were already Catholic too. I am the last of 10 children. And 6 of them, beginning from Father Julian. Father Julian is the 5th of my siblings. So then I have 6 that we are Catholic. The 4th older siblings are not practicing any religion. But yes, my parents and my family attended to the masses of the Society Pius X. In fact, they would go to the traditional mass since I was born and since before also. My father had the idea that something wrong was with the Second Catholic, Second Vatican Council, and he was very upset of what was going on with the Catholic Church. And so,
Your Excellency, how did your parents find the Society of St. Pius X Chapel? Was there one already there? Do you know, or how?
No, my parents, the time Father Julian was born, they were. My father was a consul in Spain. He was working in Gijón, Cantabria, in the northern part of Spain. He was a diplomat, and since there, both of them were very interested in the question of religion. In fact, they were having some trees that at that time that my parents were working in Spain, there was a kind of so-called apparition of in the northern part of Spain of Garabandal. I don't know if you have heard about it.
I have not.
And there were a lot of theologians sent by the church, by the Catholic Church. The Second Vatican Council was already going on, and several priests came to the house of my parents to spend time there while they were studying the case of the so-called apparition of the Blessed Virgin in this place of the northern part of. So my parents would have mass at home of these several priests that were studying the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then my father saw that the changes of Vatican II came, and he didn't like them at all. And in fact, I remember him telling me about the discussions that he had with some of the priests in the parishes there, that when they were changing the altar and saying that the new rule from Rome was to celebrate Mass facing the people and so on, and my father was always against it. And then they came back to Argentina, and they began to search for the traditional Mass. And here in Argentina was the movement of the Society Pius X was very strong, because Bishop Lefebvre came here to visit us first, maybe in the 1976 or 77 was the first visit to Argentina of Bishop Lefebvre, and the movement, the traditional Catholic movement in Argentina was very, very strong. And so later on, Bishop Lefebvre founded this seminary in Buenos Aires, where my brother went. So that was the connection with the Society Pius X, right? And my brother entered in the society in 1984, more or less. I was 4 years old, and he left the society 4 or 5 years later. And it was the occasion for my brother and my parents to get really convinced about that the Pope was not the real Pope, right? Because
Sure.
in the Society Pius X, it was like a forbidden issue to discuss about the papacy, right? We have Pope, but we should not obey because he is a bad Pope, and so the Society Pius X issue that is very sad, because the Catholic teaching is that you must obey the Pope, right? You cannot say we don't obey the Pope. So my father always had this kind of misunderstanding with the priests and bishops of the Society Pius X, without knowing very much the issue very deeply, right? But like a kind of instinct that something was wrong with the society.
Okay, so your brother was with the society. Did you say that he was a seminarian with the society?
Yes, he entered in the society as a seminarian and he spent 4 or 5 years there in Buenos Aires studying his courses of philosophy and theology there. And in the meantime, he received the minor orders there. He met Bishop Lefebvre. Bishop Lefebvre confirmed me. I had the confirmation, and all my family got the confirmation through Bishop Lefebvre. And my brother got the first tonsure and the minor orders by Bishop Lefebvre and Bishop de Castromayer, who was a Brazilian bishop, the same position of the society. He was a little harder than Bishop Lefebvre, but they never became Sedevacantists, right?
Right. So your brother leaving the seminary was what caused your family to really maybe separate from the society and start forming Sedevacantist chapels, or how did the
No, when they left
begin?
the seminary, they were a group in the seminary. They were around 40 seminarians, and when they left 20 of them. So it was a
Wow.
big break of half of the seminary and maybe 3 priests. Father Morello, who was the director of the seminary for many years during my brother studies there, and Father Medina, who was a Mexican, and Father Ruiz, who is who has now a convent of Carmelites there in Mexico.
Okay.
3 of them left the society with this group of 20 seminarians, and they spent several months in Buenos Aires living in tents. They lived in tents because they didn't have any place to go. And then they some people bought this property, this very property, for having them, and they came here and they stayed for a while, and then there were some problems. They went to Mexico. They returned, but my brother already, with other 3 seminarians, were looking for the contact of Bishop McKenna and Bishop Carmona for their ordination, right? Because the other seminarians and some of the priests, Bishop Father Morello and Father Ruiz, they wanted to make like a congregation, a religious congregation. So the seminarians that didn't want to be religious, they left the seminary and they began for their own, right?
So your brother was eventually, he was ordained by Bishop Carmona, and then is it from there that he began to, or you guys began to start the Mater Dei formation and then maybe the seminary there where you're at?
Yes, in fact, there were 3 or 4 years that he was like a parish priest for a traditional group of Sedevacantist Catholic in Cordoba, capital. And then later on, Father Luis Jurado became a priest and came here to help him. And they have this idea of having this like pious union formed, right? Mater Dei.
How did your relationship begin with Bishop Pivarunas in the CMRI?
It was because a kind of our relationship was the beginning of it was with Bishop Carmona, because it was the bishop who ordained my brother. And then Bishop Carmona suddenly died in a car accident several weeks after my brother's ordination and Bishop Pivarunas' consecration. So it was like a succession, you know. And so Father Jurado, he was a deacon. I think he was one of the first priests that Bishop Pivarunas ordained. So our connection with Bishop Pivarunas was like this, like a one died and the other followed the same work. So
okay, so you've had a long relationship then with Bishop Pivarunas, and
yes, it's gonna be about 30 years. Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you attended the seminary with Bishop Sanborn. Can you talk a little bit about what your call to the priesthood? What made you sense and desiring to be a priest?
It was very, I would say, normal for me. It was like just follow the road, you know. I was reading a book with my father, which is called Theology of Christian Perfection. wrote by a priest that in fact it was this priest was one of the theologians that was studying the case of this so-called apparition of the Blessed Virgin, and he was at home. My father knew him personally. Rojo Marin is a priest, a Spanish priest that later on became modernist with the Vatican II, right? But he wrote several books of theology, and one of the books is called Theology of the Christian Perfection. And I remember I was reading with my father the issue of the Mass, the theology around this holy sacrifice of the Mass. And I remember my father asking me, what do you think you are going to be when you grow up? Because I was 15 years old, I think. And I remember I told him I would like to celebrate Mass.
Okay.
I would like to celebrate Mass. So, and I remember he told me, yes, is my idea too. So it was like a normal part of my life, you know. It was nothing spectacular or something like that. It was just a normal conversation with my father. And since there, I think it was just I wanted to celebrate Mass. So I came to Cordoba. My brother was just forming this house of formation. So I began to study with my 16 years old. I received my Cossack when I was 17 almost. And then that's it.
There was a story, story that you mentioned to me with Father Jurado, and you're becoming a priest.
Yes, in fact,
that?
it was more or less in the same time. Father Jurado, who was already here in Cordoba, I was living in Patagonia yet. I was with my father there. I remember receiving the visit of Father Luis Jurado, and we lived nearby a river, right? So we used to go to fish, and I went to fish with Father Jurado. I was 15 years old, and we were fishing and just silently, you know, nobody talks while you are fishing. And suddenly I told him about this idea of mine, right? I would like to be like you. I would like to be like you, a priest. So I remember Father Jurado, we were not fishing anything because it was a very hard day of fishing. But I remember him telling me, I didn't fish any fish, but I fished you.
I would have to.
You can tell him that.
I'm gonna have to ask him this story when I see him. Nice. So you had mentioned earlier about going to Bishop at the time Father Sanborn's seminary.
Yes.
Why was it that you went to Most Holy Trinity Seminary as opposed to, say, with the CMRI? What brought that about?
The case was that, in fact, we were offered by Father Carlos Ercoli. Remember I told you? Father Ercoli was visiting. He's an Argentinian priest that was leaving Italy. He was living in Italy, and he left Italy to live in the United States to help Bishop Sanborn in the seminary. And he was visiting here while my brother was having this problem with no time. You know, he had this car accident. There were many places to celebrate Mass. It was the seminary, the classes, the seminary. So many things. Father Jurado already left, had already left to the United States, and my brother was by himself here, all alone. And he said, he was offered by Father Carlos Ercoli to talk to Father Sanborn to if there is any possibility of going there to finish the studies. And then the idea was for all four of us, that we were four seminarians at the time, to return to Argentina to work in Argentina, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question was, I remember once Bishop Pivarunas, when he came first, he said that he was very enthusiastic with the idea of having here a seminary in Argentina. And my brother mentioned to him the idea of the young people here to go to the United States to study. And I remember very clearly the words that I considered to be very wise, because there is a kind of big difference of culture, you know. You Americans with we Latin Americans.
Sure, yeah.
So Bishop Pivarunas, I remember, I prefer that every young people stay in his own country to study and to preserve the culture, because sometimes people come to the United States, he said, and became like lazy. You have an easy way of life, you know, in America. For our, you are accustomed. I remember Bishop Pivarunas said, we are accustomed to this way of life. But for some people that come from more poor countries or another culture, could be difficult and could be dangerous for the soul, right? For the And I remember he told us a story about some seminarians that came from abroad to the United States, and they came like they became admired with the technology, the easy way of life that, you know, everybody has a car. Everybody, you turn on the computer, you turn on the heater, you turn on the air conditioner. Everything is with buttons, and everything is very easy for us. And money. That, as Bishop Pivarunas said, would be best if you stay there. That was the question, right? Bishop Pivarunas would have accepted us, but he wanted us to stay here.
Sure.
And my brother told him through Father Jurado, because Father Julian, my brother, doesn't speak English. And he said to him, Bishop Pivarunas, I would like to keep them, but I cannot keep them because it is too much. So do you have any problem if I send the seminarians to the Most Holy Trinity, that I have an offer from Father Sanborn? Do you have any difficulties that if I accept? And Bishop Pivarunas said he was maybe not completely happy, but he said, all right, if you feel that is fine, go ahead. He was very kind to us, very father to us. And he was always very confident on us. So Bishop Pivarunas, right? So this happened this way. So there was no other explanation. We went to the United States, to Most Holy Trinity, and in fact, I had a conversation, because my idea was to get ordained by Bishop Pivarunas here in Argentina. But suddenly happened the problems, the political and economic problems here in Argentina that we are accustomed to. We live in this kind of problem every day. But for people that is not Argentinian, you know, it's a kind of difficult. So when it came the time for my ordination, Bishop Pivarunas told me, I will do your ordination, but for me it's very difficult to go to Argentina because the problems that you are having there, politicals, right? It was very unsure. The security was very bad. People shooting each other. You know, but magnified also by the newspapers and the media, right?
Right.
But I remember Bishop Pivarunas offered me to go there to Omaha for my ordination, and they had also communication between each other, Bishop Pivarunas and Bishop Sanborn. Bishop Pivarunas sent him a letter and a fax, I remember, telling him that if I was in his seminary, if Pio is in your seminary, you should ordain him. And you are a bishop, you should ordain him. So Bishop Sanborn came to my bedroom, I remember, in Michigan, and showed me the fax that was sent by Bishop Pivarunas, and I said, all right, if it is your decision, go ahead. Let's make the ordination here in Michigan. And that was the story.
I think you said earlier that Father Esposito and I can't remember the other ones from Argentina.
Palma.
Were they all there together with you at the seminary?
Yes. I remember when they first moved to the United States, I stayed behind. I remained here in Córdoba because I was a deacon already, and they were recently entered to the seminary, Father Palma and Father Nicolás Esposito. And there was another seminarian that later on left the seminary. So I remember we didn't know Bishop Sanborn, we didn't know his character or anything about him. We were just jumping on the pool, as we say. And I had a lot to lose. Understand, I had already 7 years of seminary. I had all my theology studied. And I remember the conditions to go to the seminary was logical. The superior of the seminary, Father Sanborn, wanted the candidates for the priesthood to be tested by himself, right? So I said, if Father Sanborn finds me a not good candidate, I am losing 7 years of seminary. So I was left behind. So my brother, Father Julian, went to the United States with these 3 seminarians to present them to Father Sanborn. And then they got along very well. Father Selway, who was recently ordained, I remember he called me. We didn't know each other yet. He called me by phone, and I remember him telling me, "Come here. You will just be accepted, and your studies are going to be accepted too," because they were very, very enthusiastic with us. But the conditions were very hard for me to accept, right? The conditions, I remember, there was Bishop Sanborn told me, I will choose the bishop that will ordain you. I will say how many years or months you need to study. I will decide what to do. So if you come here, you depend on me. And in that conversation with Father Selway, he told me, Father Sanborn told me that you can choose the bishop who ordained you, and the time for study is going to be 1 year. So I remember with the council with my brother, Father Julian, I accepted, and I went to the Most Holy Trinity Seminary. And in fact, I got along very well with Bishop Sanborn at the time. I remember having discussion with the the very first week I arrived. I remember having with him in the kitchen a discussion on the liturgy, and I had a good time there. I had a good time with them there. That this was 22 years ago, 23 years ago.
Your Excellency, now that you've been ordained in your storyline, and you come back to Argentina, what did your priesthood look like at that time? At least until the point where you were about to be consecrated, or what was your ministry like for the first, say, 15 years?
In fact, that the first years was just to help my brother with the centers of mass, right? My brother had 3 centers of mass in different places, so driving a lot, and we have here a little school with maybe 15 children. It was not an approved school, just like we taught the children for them to have examinations in another school, right? We acted as a school, but it wasn't a school with the approval of the state, let's say.
Okay.
And so it happened maybe the first years, 6-7 years of the first 6 or 7 years of my priesthood. And then I remember Bishop Pivarunas came to visit us in 2008. And we went together to Brazil, so I began to go to Brazil maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I spent maybe 1 week every visiting different places there in Brazil, in the Rio de Janeiro area, or Sao Paulo. And then in Brazil, I began to receive vocations, people that were interested in entering the seminary. So we began again with a little seminary, house of formation. In fact, we began with 1 seminarian in 2011, maybe, that now is a priest. Now he is the one who is visiting Brazil. In fact, now is in Brazil. Father Gabriel Graciani. Then more came, 1 more Brazilian, that it was my first ordination that I did. I made as a bishop already. And now, at the end of this month, there will be another ordination of a Chilean, one man from Chile. And at the end of this year, there will be the first Argentinian, the first Argentinian ordination. Yes. In Brazil also there is a congregation of Franciscan friars who have a superior, Father Miller. I don't know if you have heard about him, Father Miller from Francis Miller from the United States. So I used to visit them once in a while, once or twice a year. And I made an ordination for them last year also, to an American friar, Fray Buenaventura. He came from the United States to study in Brazil with the friars.
Your Excellency, what were the situations or whatnot that brought about you being consecrated a bishop?
The situation was like this. We were attended by Bishop Pivarunas. Then I remember when we have relationship with Bishop Dolan. He came to visit us 2 or 3 times, maybe here in Argentina. Then, because of the distance, we began to work with Bishop Morello, who was the priest that had left the Society Pius X, with this big break in which my brother left too. He became a bishop, consecrated by Bishop Neville, the line of Bishop Makena, and he was living in the south of Argentina. So he would come to visit us for confirmations and for the orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he wanted us to be like a religious congregation. So, and we didn't have this vocation, so he didn't want to work with us anymore, because they wanted us to make a kind of promises or vows or something like a congregation, right? So we have recourse to Bishop Pivarunas again and asked him for his visit, but it was during the time of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Nobody could travel, nobody could enter in the country, nobody could go out.
Sure.
So I remember that there was a kind of desperate situation because we didn't have the oils, the holy oils for the sacraments. We didn't have a bishop to perform the confirmations and the ordinations for the young men that were forming here, they were studying here. So I remember my brother had already proposed me as a bishop with Father Gerard McKee. Let's say, so Father, that was kind of I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I was talking with Bishop Pivarunas, and Father McKee had already talked with him.
Mm-hmm.
So Bishop Pivarunas told me, if I cannot go and you cannot come, would you like, if you being a bishop, right? What is the possibility of you accepting to be a bishop? Bishop Davila from Mexico was about to come to Argentina to visit one of the priests in the south here, Father Damin in Mendoza. So Bishop Pivarunas told me, Bishop Davila is going to Argentina. Would you be willing to become a bishop and he to be your consecrator? Was a big news for me. I didn't expect that. And I said, all right, if you wish, I am willing to do the will of God. I mean, I didn't have any expectation of what was going on, and there was no, my point was, if we are having young people to get ordained and no bishop is coming, should we, my question to Bishop Pivarunas is, should we close the house and send the vocations to you, maybe, if the borders were open? So that was the situation, and Bishop Pivarunas told me, you have to be a bishop. So we received the visit of Bishop Davila on February 2022, and everything was kept in secret because of the life we were living at that time. Remember, nobody knows what was going on, so nobody knew if there was permission to travel, if you had to go to get the vaccine, if you have to be, if you are allowed to go, to come to, everything was kind of, we didn't know that the consecration was being performed until the very beginning of the ceremony. It was a very hard time for everyone. I felt pity. I felt very sorry for Bishop Davila. It was a kind of very stressing situation, because we didn't know if he could come. We didn't know if people were accepting this consecration or not. We didn't know anything, so it was like an adventure.
So how has your ministry changed now that you are consecrated a bishop? Has there been a lot of change?
Yes, quite a lot. Quite a lot, because I remember Bishop Pivarunas, when after my consecration I went to visit him in Mount St. Michael. He told me, from now you are not going to have any more time for yourself, and that is very true. That is very true, because it's amazing how you know, people ask you more deep questions, theological questions, moral questions. They see you like a bishop, right? So and you many times you don't feel like a bishop. You just, from one day to another, you get a lot of responsibility that you didn't know before. So, and the very question of the ceremonies, for example. I remember my first Christmas Mass. I was studying it until 2 o'clock in the morning, early in the morning, to know how to do it right, to have the oils, to have the balsam, to have the right books, to prepare everything. You have to do everything for yourself, because you are alone.
Yeah.
Everything is new. Even if you have the help of the priest, it's something that you have to do by yourself, to know the rites yourself, to know the ceremonies yourself. So to read a lot, to study a lot, and that's only for the ceremonies. Then you have to review your canon law, your moral, your theology, because questions are more difficult to answer.
When I interviewed Bishop Waugh out of Canada, I asked him the same question. And he said, one thing that he said was that people out of nowhere began to contact him. He got
Exactly.
a lot of people
the same thing.
Same thing?
The same thing.
Yeah.
You become a public figure, and I will tell you, I don't like it. To be a public person, I mean, your mistakes are a public mistakes. So it's very difficult not to make any mistake, and not to be your mistake to be spread in the media. Bishop Pio Espina said this and that, and you know, it's difficult to be a public figure.
In Argentina, where you're at, was your consecration known by, let's say, local media? Or the
No, they are not interested in what we do in the local media.
What about the local diocese? Did they say anything?
No, the first when Father Julian first moved to Cordoba as a priest, the local bishop said that to the people, not go to the chapel of Father Julian Espina, because he was a schismatic. Even if he is a priest, he is not with the Catholic Church. They always recognized us as priests and bishops, but like schismatic, right?
Right.
We are not part of the Church of Rome, let's say. But later on, no, there was no more attack. No, they just ignore us, and we ignore them.
What about the SSPX priests out there? Do you have any contact with them or talk with any of them?
Not at all. No. I remember Father Julian had many friends in the society, and I remember when they went to Cordoba to stop this blasphemous exposition of art. The society also sent some priests that were friends of Father Julian, and they were all together fighting against this show, right? But no further communication, not at all. No.
I wanted to ask just some questions that maybe some people might be interested in. Maybe I was going to ask you maybe about the Unacum issue. What is your view regarding attending, let's say someone to attend mass, let's say at the SSPX chapel, if there's, if they're the only place available? What would your view be on that?
What we think here in Argentina is that we have to consider the situation, the general situation, and we have to work with much people that is not aware of the depth of the problem, right? So if they go to the society with good conscience and they don't ask anything, and it is people, for example, that we don't see many times a year or much during the life, let's say.
Sure.
We do not say anything, understand? But if some people is coming to ask us about should I go to the society, of course we say no. There is no obligation. Not only obligation, but I would not advise to go. But it is like this that we work here. I understand that many people is very. They need the mass, they need the sacraments, and they act in good faith, and they don't ask anything, and we don't have them as a regular faithful, so they come to visit the place, or they come to mass once in a while, maybe once a year or something like that. We don't say anything about it. But if someone is asking us, what should I do? Should I go? Shouldn't I go? Of course, we advise them not to, right? Because of we just explain the issue and let them to make their own decision.
What would you say would be the main reason you would advise somebody if they would ask you, can I go to the society chapel, and you say no? What would be the, if they ask why, well, how come or why, what would be your answer?
It's because of the question of the Unacum. When you pray in the canon Unacum Francisco Bergoglio, the case, or John Paul II, or Benedict the 16, excuse me, or any kind of so-called Pope in the Vatican II, you are united with him in common union. That is communion, common union with him. So you are participating in his errors. Understand? So the mass could be valid, the mass of the society, if they are really priests. They are valid priests, and they celebrate validly mass. But my point is, even saving the good conscience of the priests, are these masses agreeable to God or not? That is my question. Objectively speaking, right? Objectively speaking is So then it begins a question of good faith or bad faith, or question of ignorance, invincible or invincible. So that's why that is our act. That if someone is asking you objectively, Father, should I go to the society mass? No. Must I go to the masses of the Society Pius X? No. But if you are going, and I am not an authority to you, and you come just to my place once in a while because you are here in the area for vacation or holidays, I don't say anything, because it's something that could be a good a big I don't know in English, but it would be a huge charge in his shoulders, you know.
Yeah.
That something that you need time to explain the whole issue. So it's not just a conversation outside the church, right? Outside the after mass. My point is, you go to mass to please God, not to please yourself. Many people says, I need the mass. I need the mass. Why you need the mass? Because it pleases God or it pleases you? Understand? Many times people don't make the difference because they, for example, they say, I pray the rosary because I feel good when I pray the rosary. Fine, but you don't have to pray the rosary because you feel good. It does because Our Lady asked you to do it, and it pleases Our Lady. So, because otherwise, if it doesn't please you, you are not going to pray it. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
So the Mass is something that is as a precept of the Holy Mother Church to go to Mass because it pleases God. But if I have not a Mass available, I can sanctify my Sunday by praying at home or making some sacrifice or a longer prayer, right? But the question is to please God, not to please yourself. If you're going to Mass because you get a consolation and is your first motive of going to Mass to please yourself, is not a good motive. You need to go to Mass to please God. Is that Mass pleasing God? Yes or not? That is the question. If I celebrate a Mass in common union with Bergoglio, is that Mass pleasing God or not? And my will should be to please God, not to listen to the Latin Mass and the Latin language and to smell the incense and to see good vestments and a nice altar.
Nice. Your Excellency, I think we could. I think we can end with that. Is there anything? Well, wait, let me ask you. Is there anything maybe that you wanted to say, or if there's anything that maybe any last words or anything you want to say that maybe I didn't address? Or I think this has been very good. I think I've enjoyed hearing your story, even with the hiccups, even with the internet hiccups.
is like it was like an adventure, the signal, the Wi-Fi signal coming up and down.
Well,
no, I think is I would like to make people understand, to think what is the let's say, I have to edit a lot because of my bad English, please.
you're fine.
But I would like people to see why the meaning of our position. You know, our position is to be Catholic, to be to pertain to the Roman Catholic Church, and it means that our position is because I will tell you a short story. Last Sunday, I had with newcomers. People came to my mass here, and they asked me, "You are not with the papacy?" No, I told them, "You are wrong. We are with the papacy, and we are this way because we love the papacy. We love the Pope. It doesn't mean that Francisco, the Argentinian Pope, is a real Pope." Understand? But because of our love of the Pope, of the true Pope, that's why we are Sedevacantists. And I said it before, but I would like to repeat it. I like the sentence of Saint Pius X. We must love the Pope to be saints. It's not a piety that or a devotion that we can skip. The devotion of a Catholic to the papacy, to the Pope, must be part of the religious life. You know, we can say that devotion to some saints are optional. For example, someone is devoted to Saint Philomena or Saint Teresa of Lisieux and Teresa of Avila or any other saint. You can be a Catholic without knowing those saints, but you cannot be a Catholic not knowing the papacy and the Pope, because the Pope is the vicar of Christ. He is Christ on earth. He has the place of God, as Pope Leo XIII says that we are in the place of God on earth, he said, of the Pope. So because we love the Pope, because we know that he cannot err, because we know that he is Christ on earth, because we know he is the successor of Peter, because we know that he has the prayer of our Lord, that he cannot err, because we know that the magisterium of the church is infallible. Because of all of those things, that's why we are Sedevacantists. And that's why also we have to love all the true popes until the death of Pius XII. And to love the popes means to follow all single details of the magisterium of the church, even the discipline. Discipline. So that's why we are very deeply convinced that in order to get the union among us, we should keep away our own opinions and our own suppositions and imaginations, and to be united in the church magisterium and the discipline of the same Catholic Church.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for doing this interview. I think it was fun.
Thank you very much for your patience, and excuse me, sorry for my bad English. I don't get all the old words all the time.
It's okay. So. in fact, this being on your phone has worked so much better than when you had your laptop. I can hear you so very clearly. I don't know. This has worked out. End up working out doing it this way.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
You actually, would you leave us with a blessing, and then we'll disconnect.
Of course. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descenda super vos et mania semper. Amen.